It's the 29th of May 2021. It's a Saturday. You see that the Wednesday that's just passed was Visakha Puja, the day that we commemorate the birth, the awakening of the Buddha, his first teaching of the Dhamma, setting the wheel of Dhamma in motion, and his passing away into final Nibbana, putting out the 5 khandhas and passing into final Nibbana in Kusinara. So he walked all that way to Kusinara, and he was very unwell as he travelled that distance. And there was blood coming out in his stool. But still, he managed to carry on walking through the great endurance that he had, and also through his very profound and limitless compassion, because he wished to help 2 beings in particular. There was Junta, and also he wished to help and to teach Subhadda. Subhadda, he had his karma as well, that he had firmly set his mind in the past on being the last Savaka, awakened disciple of the Buddha. So these things, they depend upon what we set our hearts on, our determinations, our adhitthana bharami. So in a previous life, Venerable Ajahn and Subhadda were brothers, and they had offered rice to a Pajeka Buddha. Venerable Ajahn, he made the adhitthana, this aspiration, determination, to be the first Savaka of a future Buddha. And his little brother afterwards made the determination to become the last Savaka. So on the night that the Buddha passed into final Nibbana, there were many monks around him. And the 2 very senior monks were Venerable Anuruddha and Venerable Ananda. And Subhadda, he had ordained outside of the Buddha Sasana in a different religion or dispensation. And he had a doubt in his mind. He wondered whether it's possible for people to become fully awakened outside of the Buddha Sasana, or whether it was just within the Buddha Sasana. And he had this doubt, this uncertainty there in his mind. So he wished to ask the Buddha this question and went to meet the Buddha to pay respects to him. But Venerable Ananda wouldn't let him because the Buddha was so unwell. And he tried many, many times, but every time Venerable Ananda would stop him. And so he had this great determination and just carried on trying. But Venerable Ananda had his duty to look after the Buddha, and he wouldn't let him enter. And this carried on until the Buddha heard what was going on. He overheard this commotion, and he knew that he could help Subhadda. So he told Venerable Ananda to let him in so he could meet with him. So he answered this question of Venerable Subhadda by saying that just as there are no footprints in the air, so too there are no Aryas, no noble beings, awakened beings outside of the Noble Eightfold Path. Which means that if we don't practice sila, samadhi and panya, if we don't practice virtue, collectedness and wisdom, then it's impossible to attain to the paths, the fruits, and Nibbana, that these just can't arise. So just through hearing this, great faith arose within Subhadda's heart, and he asked to ordain. And normally, one who had ordained in a different dispensation would have to train for a long time first before being allowed for full ordination. But the Buddha gave him a special privilege, and allowed him to ordain. And this was because he knew that he would ordain to arahantship before the Buddha passed away. So he had effort throughout that entire night, and it was the 15th night of the month, the full moon night, and his mind was very still and very peaceful already. And as he was looking up at the sky, watching the moon, he saw a cloud pass in front of it and saw how its radiance diminished. So that was just something external that he was looking at, but he brought that reflection internally to look at his mind and see how his mind was very bright. But when the sense impression passed through it, then it would become just a little bit darker. So through seeing this, then understanding arose, and he saw into the nature of instability, of change. And he saw how he attached to this, and he was able to extract that upadana, to let go of that attachment, and there was no longer any attachment to anything whatsoever. And through this, then his mind became very radiant, and he awakened, he became an arahant. So he could see that there's no self within physicality and mentality, that this is anatta. And his mind was very still already. But he'd been searching for a long time, for a path to freedom, for a way out of suffering. And he'd been practicing, his mind was already very peaceful, he could attain the jhanas already. So he put effort into this teaching that he heard from the Buddha, and through that he could awaken. So therefore, in order to awaken, we do need to have this previous barami that we have created, that we have produced already. And there also needs to be a firmness in our practice. We need to have an understanding of this path of practice. And there also needs to be solidity, stability to the mind. And with these conditions, then wisdom can arise. So in the beginning of our practice, if we want to look into mental formations or mental phenomena and see how they are anicca, they're unstable and constant, then this is something that's quite difficult to do, because for the most part our samadhi is insufficient. So we need to come back to the rupa, to physical things. We see how the mind attaches to both physicality and mentality, but this physicality, it's something that's more easy to see. And so we can use this contemplation to go through that, and that's all right to practice in that way. We can contemplate and also use the breath as well. And we go between these two practices back and forth, contemplating, then using anapanasati, then back to contemplating, and so forth. If the mind feels very tired, if it feels very chaotic, then we can watch the breath come and go and bring the mind to peace in this way, allowing the mind and the body to become buoyant. Because we see that throughout the entire day, we receive so many objects of these six senses. And if we want for the mind to just be peaceful, that's something that's quite difficult to do. So we need to use these thoughts that we have and rein them in to just one single object. For example, looking at the body, how the body is a collection of earth, water, fire, and air. And we can pick up just one of these elements and look through that. Or we can see how we still find delight in these bodies. And so we then contemplate how there's something not beautiful. We go through the hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. Or we can look inside at the internal organs, or see how when the body dies, it breaks apart, it starts to decay, it goes rotten. See how the body, it's just a body of illness. And these sicknesses, they reside here within this body. These bodies are a collection of cells. But when the cells start to deteriorate, then illness arises. This is something that's very clear in this present day and age. We see with this virus that's spreading around, and this destroys the cells of the body. So it's very clear and very easy to see how this body is a residence of illness. And no one wants anyone or anybody that's passed away through COVID. Even if it's siblings or family members, they often don't want to go near that body. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of this illness which they may get. So we can contemplate in this way. It's all right to look at it, the body as being a heap of illness, as being a heap of elements, as being something unattractive, as being anicca, dukkha, anatta. And we can pick up any one of these aspects and go back and forth through it, and so that we come to peace. And so we do this initially. And then as we carry on contemplating, then wisdom will arise. But in the beginning, it's the wisdom that comes up through our thinking, through thinking about the things that we've heard, the things that we've read. And we take that knowledge that we've gained and we reflect upon it. And we look into this body, take the mind to contemplate the body, see the body as being a heap of instability, as being a heap of unattractive things, as being a heap of elements. So we contemplate the things that we're attached to, and the most coarse of these things is this body. We take it as being me and mine, we attach to it in this way. And if we want to gain vipassana, this clear insight, penetrating insight, seeing it as really being not me or mine, that may be something that's quite difficult to do because there are things which are obstructing that vision. We still attach to it, and that attachment obstructs vipassana. Still take it as being me and mine, still take it as being beautiful. And so we contemplate in a way which allows the heart to settle into stillness first. And when the heart is calm, when it feels at ease, then we can think, or we can contemplate death. See how really the body is a heap of death. We try to gain an understanding in this way. And through this, then the mind can become very at ease. Through bringing up these perceptions, these memories, recollecting our death, and the mind settles down, it becomes peaceful, it gathers together into samadhi. And when the mind is still in this way and firmly established, collected, then knowledge arises here. We can really see clearly at that point that it doesn't have a me, it doesn't have a mind within it. The mind becomes very still. And then when it starts to proliferate and give rise to me and mine, saying how this thing is me, it's I, it belongs to me, then here a new kind of wisdom arises, one that's based upon peace. This clarity, this insight arises here. And the knowledge can be very bright. The heart becomes radiant, it fills up with joy. And we see that really there's no self here. There's no us, there's no them. We see the body externally as being something that's not beautiful. We see people as just being a collection of elements tottering about. And we look with wisdom in this way, and we see clearly like this. But in the beginning we need to depend upon our perceptions and memories. We use our thoughts to think about just one thing, one theme. And if we're tired, then we recharge the mind through samadhi, through looking at the breath, or reciting Buddha. Or if we're more inclined towards wisdom, if our personality works in that way, then we can use our wisdom to do that. We can contemplate the body as being unstable, as being stressful and not self. And through this, the delight that we have – and the lust that we have in bodies should reduce. So we can simply touch our left hand with our right hand and feel the bones there. And really, anywhere we touch this body, we'll feel the bones underneath the skin. And we can ask ourselves, are these me? And the reason that we so often attach to this body as being me is because the nerves are still functioning. And the nerves are sending signals from these parts of the body. And they give rise to these physical feelings. And then we take to these feelings as being me. But if we get injected with anesthetics, then there's no sensation that comes, that these nerves or the nerve signals are being inhibited. And then with no feeling in these parts of our bodies, say in our leg, for example, then we can see the leg as just being like a log, just being like a piece of wood. Or like people who are crippled and they've lost feelings to parts of their bodies. They don't have any sensation there. Or maybe the different parts of the body has gone numb. There's no pain that they feel. Then it's easy to just see that as being just elements, just parts of this world, and that's clear. But when we have feeling, when there's Vedana there, then the mind clings onto that and takes it as being me. It takes that feeling as belonging to me, and then it takes that part of the body as belonging to me as well. So both of these, physicality and mentality, the mind clings to. But if there's no Vedana, then it's easier for the mind to just see it as being physical, as just being rupa. And like how we see that when someone dies, that the corpse, there's no self in it. It's easy to see that body as just being like a log. And so we can contemplate death in this way. Contemplate the body initially, seeing anicca, dukkha, anatta within it. In the last sermon that the Buddha gave, the last teaching that he gave to the monks around him, he said, "Bhikkhus, don't be heedless. Make yourselves consummate in heedfulness, because sankharas, these conditioned phenomena, are of the nature to deteriorate in this way." So this was the very last teaching that he gave, and it's something that we should contemplate, that we should think about. And so we shouldn't be heedless. And just like now, how we're training ourselves in samadhi, and we're not being heedless right now. And whatever the case, no matter what happens in this life, we're not able to stay on in this world. And how we come into this world, how we live our lives in this world, it depends upon our barami. It depends upon our actions. And some people are able to find a lot of wealth here. They have mindfulness, they have wisdom. They maybe have a lot of power and influence, and they have created the barami to have that. And so people aren't equal in these regards. Some people are born into a very high status, into a family of good regard, and they have everything complete, everything that they need. They have a lot of wealth, they have great status, they get a lot of praise, they have a lot of pleasure in their lives. But for some people with lesser barami, then their lives can be very difficult. But if they use this life to cultivate barami, then it's possible for things to get better, for them to gain more, to get more praise, to get higher status, to get more pleasure. But whatever the case, no matter how much barami we have, the Buddha encouraged us to be heedful and to use this life well. Because having been born, all of us must grow old. We must get sick. We must die. And it just depends on whether that happens quickly or slowly. But we have to die for sure. Everyone goes through this. Every life has to go through this. So each hour, each day that we have in this life, we should try to stay in the present moment as much as possible, to build up as much goodness as we can. Because no one is able to take anything out of this world. When we're born, then we get this feeling of me and mine. And then we go around collecting things, gathering things up. But in the end, we have to leave it all behind. We have to drop it all here, and we don't own any of it anymore. And all that we can take with us is the karma that we've produced, whether it's good karma or bad karma, whether it's meritorious or demeritorious. So the Buddha emphasized for us to not be heedless, that we should build up goodness while we can. So we contemplate this body as being a heap of anicca, dukkha, anatta. And when we see this, then it's really amazing when wisdom comes up in this way. And for people who have wisdom, all we need to do is to look at a lotus flower that's been offered to a Buddha image, and we see how in not many days it becomes withered and dry. And just through seeing that, it's possible to attain to sotapanna, to stream entry. For those who have very well-established samadhi in this way, then they can contemplate. If their mindfulness and their samadhi is complete, then that's all it takes. It's just to contemplate like this. But if we're not at that level yet, then we need to train. We need to forge these qualities, to build them up first. And it's important to not become discouraged, to not retreat, but to carry on, to persevere, to have effort, to have this focus, this intention, this determination, and really take it on. Then in this life we have this great opportunity already. We've met with the teachings of the Buddha. And some people, they've come from really far away. They've passed over the oceans to get here with this desire to practice the Dhamma. So we need to take it for real. We really need to take this on, to contemplate constantly, to all throughout the day maintain our mindfulness, to not just allow the mind to go as it wishes, but to keep our mindfulness here. Whatever chant we like, then we should do that a lot. We chant that particular verse many, many times, and carry on training in this way, not stop. And one day the mind will gather together, and will see with clarity. Really see, understand that these things, they're not self, they're not me, they're not mine. And the mind becomes bright, it becomes empty. And just like how a car and its driver are two separate things, and so too the mind and the body are separate in this way. And they're separate, and we can see that it's not me. So we take the peaceful mind to contemplate the body firstly, and through that we will see the Dhamma. When sila, samadhi, panya collect together, come together, then we'll see the Dhamma then. And there were many lay people during the time of the Buddha who listened to his teachings and attained to stream entry. There were huge numbers. And they gained wisdom in this way. So their effort was already very great, and they'd already built up their barami to a kind of, so it was complete. And that's how they were able to attain to sotapanna. And so what about us? Well, we have the faith to ordain, and that's no easy matter. It shows that we have barami already. If we can show up and attend the morning chanting, the evening chanting, attend to the duties and our chores throughout the day, and do this on a daily basis, we have mindfulness and we have the sense of sacrifice. It shows that there's a lot of barami within us to be able to do that. And so we just carry on practicing in this way and bide our time, wait until our barami becomes full. And so for lay people, they need to be intent, to be sincere as well. And many people have chanted Itipiso 84,000 times already, And there are many, many others who are very close to that number. And so we carry on chanting and do this every single day. We mindfully recollect the great and beautiful qualities of the Buddha. And as we carry on doing this, then eventually we'll just be able to recite Buddho, Dhammo, Sangho, just this one word, Buddho, and the mind settles and becomes peaceful, it becomes full of joy. And then with that, the mind in that state, then we come to contemplate the body as the Buddha taught. As he taught the 5 ascetics, he asked, is this body something stable or unstable? Is it constant or inconstant? And they replied that it's not. And then the Buddha asked, well, something that is unstable, something that's stressful, is it really appropriate to take that as belonging to me, as being a self? And this is something that is really worth thinking about, something that we should ponder, something that changes, a thing which is painful. And it's of the nature to be painful and to always be changing in this way. Is it really me? And should we attach to it as being me? And if it is me, then why can't it stay? We see that every body that's born, it has to die. And then when it's dead, people go and burn it. And there's nothing left. And especially when the fire is really strong, the whole thing just disintegrates, it completely disappears. We're able to stay in this world due to our breath, due to the oxygen that we take in, the water, the food, the medicine. And through this, the 4 elements are able to come together and stay together. But the cells in the body, they also have a lifespan of their own as well. And every 10 years, then every cell in this body changes over. So if we stay for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80, 90, you see it's really difficult to find people who are 90 years or over. Those people over the age of 90, they comprise just 1% of the world's population. So no matter how we live our lives, no one is able to stay on in this world. And if we get very old already, then it's actually quite difficult to practice with that kind of body. Because when we meditate, then there's a lot of physical pain. And some people, they doubt, they wonder, why is it that I've created so much merit in this life, and their merit isn't helping me? I'm still feeling all this pain. I'm still getting sick in this way. But they don't understand. They don't get merit. Because what merit is happiness of heart. When we're generous, when we keep the precepts, when we meditate, then what this gives us is internal happiness. But some people say, I've been so generous, I've donated so many things to arahants. Why am I feeling so much pain like this? But their understanding is incorrect. This merit brings up inner happiness, inner joy. And if we also have kusala, if we also have skillfulness, intelligence there, then that will look after our hearts, it will care for the mind, and it will understand that the Dhamma is this way. We'll have the intelligence to see that the Buddha taught that all sankharas, all conditioned phenomena, they're all unstable, they're always changing, that they have the nature to arise, and they have the nature to cease. And even the Buddha's body had to go through that. It came into this world, and then it passed away, because it was a sankhara, a conditioned phenomena. So for us, having been born, we have to die for sure. And this is something that we should contemplate, something that we should come to understand. So we take this peaceful mind to contemplate the body. And when we contemplate in this way, then we will see the Dhamma. So don't become disheartened, don't become discouraged, don't retreat, but carry on and really put in your efforts, take it for real. And when we contemplate the body, then we'll come to see the Dhamma with clarity. So may all of you practice together in this way and have sincerity in the practice.